So before we get into this video, if you guys want to check out my feature film PCD, you can. It's on Amazon right now. You can also check out the Blu-ray. Also follow me on my social media. My link tree down below has all my short films. Always looking to collaborate with other content creators, filmmakers. Yeah, my link tree has like everything down there if you want to check it out. But this is a video I have waited a long time to make, and I even hesitated making it because it's been like all these films that I've watched have been spaced out over a period of time, and yeah, but I think I can make this video. I'm pretty sure that I can, and that is my Krzysztof Kieślowski ranked. It's not all of his films. It is 9 of his films, but I mean, it is the ones that people have seen the most. Like, I can't imagine I'm missing anything too crazy. Because if I was, I would probably buy it or try to find it and watch it. I'm not going to lie, I was very upset when I finished the final film in this filmography because Krzysztof Kieślowski is one of my favorite directors. He's in my top 10. He is just, I think, he's one of the best directors out there that's ever lived. And he definitely did pass away early in his prime, for sure. I've seen this list of naming directors that died like right whenever they were getting really, really, really good. And Krzysztof Kieślowski was that. I mean, I couldn't imagine what his next film would have been after Red. I seriously just, I mean, he was just such a great talent behind the camera. And we're going to go through his films. Now, I do enjoy most of his films. There is one film that we'll talk about at the bottom that I just did not really care for whatsoever. So I'm going to be completely honest about this ranking. And we're not going to waste any time, so let's go ahead and talk about it. So coming in at number 9, we have The Scar. When a political decision is made as to the location of a new large chemical factory, Stefan Benars is put in charge of it. This honest communist party man has to confront the local community opposing the construction. That was too many C's there for one sentence. I was for this film when it first started, but I'm not gonna lie, I gave it like a 2 out of 5, and I do not rank films. I usually just rank films just for giggles, because I don't really think about it too much. Like, my ranking for a film could be a 1 to a 5 depending on how I'm feeling, like I just don't really care about ranking stuff, but I did give it a 2. It's boring. I mean, that's it. Because the thing is, when it first started, it introduced this interesting sort of look at what was going on in this town, and you have this character who, this was his childhood town, and he goes there, and you get to see him interact with people, and it makes for an interesting viewing experience at the start, but then it just kind of meanders a little bit on just the same thing over and over and over again. So I don't know, I just was not really the biggest fan. This is probably the least known of Kieślowski's films, possibly. And I ended up watching this in an Arrow video box set. So yeah, this was not even on my list to watch it, but I did watch it. It was in the box set, so I decided to watch it. But I just didn't really care too much for it. Coming in at number 8, we have Blind Chance 1987. Now this film, I'm surprised how low it is considering when it came out, because I've noticed that Kieślowski's work kind of just got better as he went on. But Wojtek runs after a train. 3 variations follow on how such a seamlessly banal incident could influence the rest of Wojtek's life. This is actually a really interesting premise, I think, because going through and watching this character live like 3 different scenarios, and I can't imagine at the time, like, I mean, it was probably a pretty controversial thing to do, because you're basically just telling the same story 3 times. Like, I'm looking at the reviews for this. Like, I should have watched Run Lola Run instead of this. Like, it seems like people are a fan of this, but it's also like, it seems like it's got some mixed reviews. I liked it. I think the thing that really did sort of take away was that, from my experience, was when you are watching the same thing go on, I think, which again, there is a lot of I guess you could say variety in what's going on, like in his story and stuff, sure, but when you're watching the same premise go on over and over and over again, which there's more to it than that, of course, yes, but it does, again, meander a little bit, and I like it. I like the film a lot. It's in the Criterion Collection if you want to watch it, but I don't know, it is one of those films where I think tonally it's very different to his other stuff. When I think of like Krzysztof Kieślowski's filmography, I mean, when you think of the 3 Colors trilogy, the Double Life, Decalogue, and such. Like, you just think about the soundtrack, and you think about, the colors and the way everything's filmed. And this film, it feels like a Kieślowski film, but it really does feel like he's trying to stray away from his typical style, which there's no problem with that whatsoever. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But it is what it is, and it's number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have Camera Buff, which I did not expect to like this as much as I did. But Philippe buys an 8mm movie camera when his first child is born. Because it's the first camera in town, he's named the official photographer by the local party boss. His horizons widen whenever he's sent to a regional film festival with his first work, but his focus on movie making also leads to domestic strife and philosophical dilemmas. Sorry, I just woke up. It's early. This was one I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did, because I kind of have an issue with films that are about film, because I feel like it can get a little bit pretentious. I think it can. I do think more often than not it does. But this is one of those films where I think there was a nice balance with it, because it seems like we're really just watching a story that just so happens to have a camera, as opposed to, the story just revolving around the whole filmmaking thing. Because Philippe, he goes through a bunch of things with his wife and with the town and with his superiors, and it's so cool to watch a passion spark within somebody, because you really are watching him as he has no experience, no love for the medium whatsoever, and then as the story progresses, you get to watch him fall in love with everything. And it's just, I don't know, it's very, in a way, like, if you're a filmmaker yourself, you can really get attached to the idea of what's going on, because I'm pretty sure everybody's went through this, because filmmaking is a very hard thing. It's a very time-consuming thing. It's not something like, when you're in it and you want to be committed to it, it is a lifelong thing. It's an art form. It's a medium. It's something the same as like making music or painting or writing books or whatever, or doing theater. It's like, you are there with it. And if you love it, well, you got to make sacrifices. And you're just watching him learn and get better, and he's tackling on bigger things, and it starts like an issue with this marriage. And I don't know, it was just, I personally really liked it, and I connected with it a lot. And I really think that, like, every filmmaker should probably watch this. It seems like it does have more views than his other stuff, which is good. But I liked it, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Coming in at number 6, we have No End. In 1982 Poland, a translator loses her husband and becomes a victim of her own sorrow. She looks to... Gotta watch out what I say. Let me just rephrase that. Let me do this, because I'm monetized and I can't say that word. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. But essentially, it's about a woman whose husband has just passed away. He was an attorney, and she's basically helping out a case that he was working on whenever he passed away. So they're trying to figure out what's going to happen with this case. She basically is just helping out with it, and I don't want to say she's helping out with her husband's wishes, because it's a little bit more than that. But yeah, and this only has 11,000 compared to Camera Buff, so more people have seen Camera Buff than No End, which I thought more people had seen No End. One of the things that I really liked about this is when it opens up, and this isn't a spoiler, but when it opens up, there are these moments where you can see the husband in the background doing things. They're not trying to hide it. I mean, you can see it, but there's this fourth wall breaking thing right at the beginning of the film, which is it's very Kieślowski. He doesn't care, and that's why I love him. But you get to. This was the final film that I watched in Kieślowski's filmography, and I don't want to say too much, but there's some films that I just don't want to say too much about it, and there's some films I don't really care to. But this film, I think, was the perfect film to end his filmography on, because the ending of this is one of the most poetic things I've ever seen. Ending my filmography, my journey with his filmography, with this final scene was just... It just felt so perfect. It did. But watching No End really made me want to kind of see a horror film from Kieślowski. But essentially, you are watching the wife as she struggles with, the death of her husband, and there's this case going on, and she's getting herself involved in it. She also has her son, which she's going through stuff with that. There's a really interesting, because her husband died in a car accident, there's a very interesting scene where her car shuts off, and then it comes back on, and she sees another car wreck. There's so much symbolism, and that's Kieślowski for you. I mean, he does not care. He goes for it. And No End is one of those films where a lot of people that have seen his films probably haven't seen it, but I would definitely recommend it. Here we go. We're getting into the nitty gritty. Number 5, The Double Life of Veronica. You could say Veronica. I don't know. I'm just going to say Veronica because it makes me happy. Veronica is a beautiful young French woman who aspires to be a renowned singer. Veronica lives in Poland, has a similar career goal, and looks identical to Veronica. Though the two are not related, the film follows both women as they contend with the ups and downs of their individual lives, with Veronica embarking on an unusual romance with Alexander, a puppeteer who may be able to help her with her existential issues. Oh, you gotta love that word, existential, and then and put it in cinema. Yeah, this is another one of those films where I feel like it's a nice companion piece to Blind Chance, because Blind Chance, you're watching different scenarios. Well, The Double Life of Veronica, you're watching two individuals, and they look the same. Now, this is a film that one of my friends actually said he wasn't a big fan of this, and for me, I really loved it a lot, because it's stylistically very different to what Kieślowski does, but the soundtrack is there. You know, like he's got that weird. I can't describe what he does with the soundtrack, but I really love it a lot. And the color for this film is a lot different than, he really did in his later career get very, I guess you could say, symbolic with his color palettes, because with this film, it has this very like green and sort of yellow kind of color palette. And then if you look at like the three colors, blue or white or red, it tries to fit into that color scheme. And I really like what he did with it. Like, it was almost like he just kind of mastered the whole narrative storytelling thing, and then he just focused on the visuals, which I'm speaking for him right now. That might not be the case, but that's sort of how I interpreted it. The Double Life of Veronica is one of the most popular films, I think, in his filmography. I really enjoyed it. I think the cinematography is what really did stick out to me a bunch. But I love this film a lot. And the first time that I watched it, it's so interesting watching these two characters go back and forth, because when something happens to one of them, it's just like, okay, well, is something else going to happen? Like, there's no... What is the right word I'm looking for in this? I don't know. It doesn't matter. This is another film I don't want to say too much about, because it is best if you go into it, I think, blind. And it's not that long either. Kieślowski did a really good job, I think, with his runtimes. Like, there's some directors that I believe their runtimes are warranted, because, that's the way they tell a good story, is through a long runtime. But Kieślowski, he's pretty good at keeping his stuff under 2 hours, I've noticed, which is... I think very beneficial, especially to like a cinephile that might be trying to get into foreign cinema. I think that's, I think it's a good thing for sure, but definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of like cinematography and such. You'll probably take something out of it. I can't imagine you wouldn't. Oh, here we go. Coming in at number 4, we have Three Colors White. Polish immigrant Carol finds himself without a marriage, a job, and a country when his French wife, Dominique, divorces him after 6 months due to his impotence. Forced to leave France after losing the business they jointly owned. A fun fact about this film is it stars Julie Delpy, which, if you're not familiar with who she was also in the Before trilogy. She was also in Avengers. You've probably seen her in stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of cool. And also, let me just talk about this. So the Three Colors trilogy. The thing about the Three Colors trilogy is they are standalone films, but they do kind of connect. Like, you'll see characters from one appear in the other, and that's sort of what he did with the Decalogue, where in some episodes you would see some characters from certain episodes appear in other episodes. Well, with Three Colors White, this couple, they jointly own this business, and they're separating. But Carol, she is smuggling back someone to get to their homeland, basically. And this was the weakest of the Three Colors trilogy, in my opinion, because I don't really remember too much about it. I just remember really enjoying it. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very stupid. And I'm going to give this a 4.5, because I went from a 5 to a 4.5 just now. I'm sorry. And this is another one. It's pretty short as well. But this film, I mean, it tackles themes such as divorce. It tackles themes such as like just separation, and nothing that's really too, I guess you could say, foreign to Kieślowski. And the whole smuggling aspect of the film, I think it. There's a lot of different themes going on, of course, but the main theme is separation. And Again, I don't want to say too much about this. Like, let me talk about the other ones because this is the one I don't know. I've already said too much. I'm cutting stuff out of this video because I feel like I'm spoiling things, and I don't like to do that. Some people don't care, but I do, so sorry. Coming in at number 3, we have Three Colors Blue. The wife of a famous composer survives a car accident that kills her husband and daughter. Now alone, she shakes off the old identity and explores her newfound freedom, but finds that she is unbreakably bound to other humans, including her husband's mistress, whose existence she never suspected. I gotta quit doing these videos this early in the morning. Yeah, this was another one that, again, I don't know what it is with Kieślowski and car crashes, but yeah, okay. One of the things that I really liked about this is, and this really goes about any other film out there. This goes for any other film out there. Is I really like it whenever a film starts off where, you know, we're in the midst of everything, and then as the story progresses, we find out this whole other story, this whole other narrative before that happened. And I think that's what makes for a really compelling story, is when you have this other story that happened before it that's just not filmed, it's not shown, it's not elaborated on. So these characters sort of, you know, they basically feed off this narrative, and then as you're watching this, you're watching them suffer through what happened, you know, before the film started. I just think it makes for interesting character development, especially whenever she meets her husband's old mistress. Because, I mean, let's face it, a husband and a daughter dying in a car crash, that's a very harrowing thing. It sucks. It really does. But then, you know, like, you feel for her and you feel bad for her, and then you figure out, like, who her husband is and what was going on, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, in a twisted way, did she lose something or did she gain something? You know, just from the husband's point of view. And those are the questions that Kieślowski presents. He's not scared to go after these hard-hitting, existential questions. He's not scared to just go for it, and that's what I love about him a lot. I really like the Three Colors Blue. I really like the color scheme with it, especially, like, you know, all the blue symbolism and stuff. Yeah, I like it. Coming in at number 2, this was his final film, Three Colors Red. Part-time model Valentine unexpectedly befriends a retired judge after she runs over his dog. At first, the grumpy man shows no concern about the dog, and Valentine decides to keep it, but the two form a bond when she returns to his house and catches him listening to the neighbor's phone calls. So without spoiling anything, the ending of this film, I think, was just beautiful. It was phenomenal. It was amazing. And there are certain parts of this film, especially when she's going to this house, like, it just, I don't know, the red dress and everything about Three Colors Red, I think, is just Kieślowski. It's peak Kieślowski. It's almost like he's taking the medium and he knows what he's doing with it. There's nothing more that he can add. He's just going to do what he does, and it's going to be great. And I was not bored one time watching this. I was a little bit nervous watching this because it was the final one that I watched out of the 3, because I'd heard really great things about it. And after watching White and then Blue, I was like, oh my gosh, like, does it get better than this? Like, what if I don't like Red as much as I did Blue, because I really love Blue. And then I watched it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And if you don't know about Three Colors Red it's on a lot of top films of all time lists. Like, it is, I think it's one of the few films that has a perfect score on Metacritic. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, it is a fantastic film. It is a fantastic film. I hesitate to even bring up things in this. One of the criticisms that I get with my videos is I don't talk about some of the stuff that goes on in the film, and I guess that throws people off. I don't care to sit here and tell you about how I feel about the film for like 5 minutes. I can definitely do that, but I just try to refrain from saying a lot of things, because I just, you know, you never know when somebody's seen stuff and when they haven't, and most of the time when you're searching for a video about a film, it's probably because you've not seen it before and you want to hear somebody's outlook on it. So just know Three Colors Red is probably one of the most interesting, visually beautiful films you're probably ever going to watch. It might be your favorite of Kieślowski's films. If you watch it, it is my favorite technical, like film from him. But my number one that I'm going to go with, and it's the same thing I did with David Lynch's ranking. I included Twin Peaks, the entirety of Twin Peaks, in David Lynch's ranking, which was my number one. But coming in at number 1, we have Decalogue. This is basically 10 episodes of, it's a mini-series. It's like a 10-hour long movie, but it's basically a mini-series of the 10 Commandments in different stories. He also took two of the stories, I believe it was episodes 5 and 6, and made a short film about love and a short film about killing, I think, which I don't blame him, because those are definitely the two best segments of the Decalogue. So that's all the Decalogue is about. You have the 10 Commandments in film form, in Poland. All these stories kind of connect in very loose ways. And Stanley Kubrick actually wrote Kieślowski a letter talking about these films, about how much he enjoyed them. And I don't blame him at all, because I do think that Decalogue is pretty much peak cinema. I say that as non-pretentious as I possibly can. But I seriously just, if I could go back and watch Decalogue again for the first time, I would. I'm holding off on watching it this year. I'll probably watch it next year, just because I want to go into it, just as blind as I possibly can, again. But I will say episode 5 and episode 6 is some of the best stuff that cinema has to offer. I think a short film about love is just phenomenal. I think the episode, watching it by itself, is better because it's a quick hour. But it's honestly just amazing. But let me just try to read you the actual synopsis of it. Originally made for Polish television, the Decalogue focuses on the residents of a housing complex in the late communist Poland, whose lives become subtly intertwined as they face emotional dilemmas that are at once deeply personal and universally human. It's 10-hour-long films drawing from the 10 Commandments for thematic inspiration and an overarching structure, grapple with complex moral and existential questions concerning life, death, love, hate, truth, and the passage of time. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's got a 4.6 on Letterboxd. It's really, really, really good. Somebody actually, this is a ranking of somebody's episodes that they put. They put Decalogue 10, 5 out of 5, Decalogue 5, 5 out of 5, Decalogue 1, 5. Speaking, the lowest one that I would give out of this would probably be like a 4.5. I loved every episode of Decalogue. This is one, like, look, I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you do not have Decalogue, like if you're into Criterions or movie collections and or movie collecting and you do not have Decalogue, Decalogue needs to be something that you own. It is like, if you don't own Decalogue, no, but I'm just kidding. But seriously, buy it if you can. Like, I mean, it's really good. Next Criterion sale, snatch that sucker up. Just go ahead and buy it. Because if you do, you'll look like this. And you always want to look really cool, dude. That was so stupid. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is my Kieślowski rank. Don't get mad at me that I didn't talk too much about the films up front, because I don't want to spoil anything. And I actually did for Three Colors White, if that's the one that seemed the most jumbled, because I was talking about it and I was like, nope, I've said too much. So I'm sorry, but just know I highly recommend these films. But anyway, guys, take it easy, and I'll see you next time. What's your favorite Krzysztof Kieślowski film? Leave it in the comments below. Bye.